So The Sound of the Mountain is a deeply introspective novel that follows Shingo Ogata, a 62-year-old businessman living in Kamakura in Japan. As he grows older, he becomes increasingly aware of his mortality, the decay of his memory, and the emotional fractures within his own family. His marriage to his wife Yasuko is stable but devoid of warmth. Meanwhile, his son Shuichi is neglectful and unfaithful to his wife, Kikuko, whom Shingo secretly admires for her gentle demeanor. Shingo's daughter, Fusako, returns home with a failed marriage, bringing her 2 children and further unsettling the household. Now, the novel does not have a dramatic plot in the traditional sense, but rather unfolds as a series of quiet moments, inner reflections, and fragmented memories. Shingo listens to the distant sound of a mountain, a mysterious and symbolic rumble that reminds him of the passage of time. He finds himself drawn to Kikuko, whose kindness contrasts with the emotional neglect of his own marriage. Although his feelings remain unspoken, his affection for her serves as a painful reminder of beauty, love, and missed opportunities.
A locust flew in and lit on the skirt of the mosquito net. It made no sound as he picked it up. A mute. It would not be one of the locusts he had heard at the tree. Lest it fly back in, attracted by the light, he threw it with all his strength toward the top of the tree. He felt nothing against his hand as he released it. Gripping the shutter, he looked toward the tree. He could not tell whether the locust had lodged there or flown on. There was a vast depth to the moon at night, stretching far on either side. Though August had only begun, autumn insects were already singing. He thought he could detect a dripping of dew from leaf to leaf. Then he heard the sound of the mountain. It was a windless night. The moon was near full, but in the moist, sultry air the fringe of trees that outlined the mountain was blurred. They were motionless, however. Not a leaf on the fern by the veranda was stirring. In these mountain recesses of Kamakura, the sea could sometimes be heard at night. Shingo wondered if he might have heard the sound of the sea, but no, it was the mountain. It was like wind far away, but with a depth like a rumbling of the earth. Thinking that it might be in himself, a ringing in his ears, Shingo shook his head. The sound stopped, and he was suddenly afraid. A chill passed over him, as if he had been notified that death was approaching. He wanted to question himself calmly and deliberately, to ask whether it had been the sound of the wind, the sound of the sea, or a sound in his ears, but he had heard no such sound. He was sure he had heard the mountain. It was as if a demon had passed, making the mountain sound out.
Now, a slight word of warning. The writing style may not be to everyone's tastes, as Kawabata frequently uses dreams to reflect the deeper themes of the story. So if you don't like hearing about other people's dreams and don't enjoy people telling you about their dreams, then you might find parts of the book quite challenging. Shingo, the character, the main protagonist, frequently experiences these vivid and unsettling dreams which reflect his subconscious anxieties about death, about the past, regrets, and the changing world around him. These dream sequences add to the novel's meditative and melancholic tone, highlighting how memory and imagination intertwine in old age. One of the central themes is the passage of time and the inevitability of death. Shingo experiences lapses in memory, struggles with fatigue, and feels increasingly detached from the world. His dreams often recall people from his past, blurring the lines between memory and imagination. The distant rumbling of the mountain serves as a symbol of nature's indifference to human life, a reminder that time moves forward regardless of personal regrets. I think my most enjoyable part of the book was how it focuses on like the family dynamic and a family under a microscope. Kawabata takes what seems like an ordinary family and examines its dysfunction under a microscope. Instead of large conflicts, he focuses on small, everyday tensions, a look, a sigh, a moment of silence that reveal deeper emotional fractures. There's a lot between the lines here. The novel The novel exposes the unspoken disappointments, betrayals, and quiet sufferings within the family, making it a deeply psychological study of human relationships. I should say that it also kind of covers the changing face of Japan in the 1960s as well. It reflects the cultural and moral shifts of post-war Japan. Shingo represents the older generation, bound by tradition, while Shuichi and Fusako reflect a younger generation shaped by Western influences and modern ideals. The disintegration of family values, changing roles of women, and the rise of materialism all signal Japan's transition from an old world society into a rapidly modernizing one. It also speaks about the role of women and the shifting gender roles. There is a contrast between the two different types of women in post-war Japan, being Kikuko, who represents traditional femininity, gentle, passive, and enduring suffering in silence, um, directly opposed to Fuseko, who embodies like a modern rebellion, openly expressing her dissatisfaction and resisting the expectations placed upon her. Both women struggle in different ways, reflecting the changing status of women in Japanese society. What I think most people would take away from the book is this powerful sense of the unspoken love and unspoken regret. Shingo's relationship with Kikuko is defined by what remains unsaid. While he never openly expresses his feelings, his admiration for her suggests a longing for a lost kind of beauty and love. His emotions contrast with Shuichi's careless betrayal, highlighting the difference between quiet longing and like a reckless desire. As I mentioned before, it does go into the role of dreams and the blurring of reality as well. Dreams are a major part of the novel, often acting as a window into Shingo's subconscious. His dreams are filled with images of lost friends, past mistakes, and symbols of death. It actually says on the back of my copy here, of all modern Japanese fiction, Kawabata is the closest to poetry. And I would agree that his writing style is minimalist and poetic. His writing is elegant, restrained, and deeply poetic. He conveys emotion through subtle details, a pause in conversation, a fleeting glance, or an unspoken thought. His descriptions of nature mirror his characters' inner lives, creating a deeply atmospheric reading experience. Rather than long internal monologues, much of the novel's emotion is revealed through sparse yet meaningful dialogue. Conversations between Shingo and his family are often indirect, filled with subtext and unspoken tension. Instead of openly confronting their feelings, characters hint at their emotions through small, seemingly trivial exchanges. The pauses, hesitations, and unfinished sentences speak volumes, allowing readers to feel the weight of what is left unsaid.
So I was just walking through Tokyo, through Roppongi, to find a little coffee shop to finish Kawabata's The Sound of the Mountain, which I'm enjoying, and I stumbled across this little walk path through a beautiful little forest like this. That's the wonder of Tokyo, is that despite the hustle and bustle, never too far away from a bit of peace and a bit of quiet and a bit of serenity. Some lovely little forest area like this. There's actually a great bookstore in Shinjuku called Kinokuniya, which has a large range of English books, large range of classic stories and contemporary books, Japanese books which have been translated, magazines, tomes, art books, and philosophy, all sorts of things like that. A really fantastic bookstore. I frequent there quite a lot, and look, they've got a beautiful range of Japanese books right now. I'm very tempted to get a few of these myself.
I wanted to quickly comment on some of Kawabata's other famous and other popular works. He's written some really fantastic and very, very famous books, just as popular as this one. There's a book called Snow Country, which I'll show here, a haunting love story between a wealthy Tokyo man and a geisha in a remote mountain town. There's Thousand Cranes, a novel infused with the symbolism of the traditional Japanese tea ceremony dealing with love and loss. And somewhat unsurprisingly, there's also a book by him called Beauty and Sadness, a darker novel about an aging novelist and his former lover, filled with jealousy and revenge. You might have already sensed a bit of a pattern or a theme throughout all of his books, but definitely all of Kawabata's works are characterized by aesthetic sensitivity, emotional restraint, and a deep focus on fleeting beauty. So, what are my final thoughts on The Sound of the Mountain? Challenging at times, because personally the dream aspect became a little bit grueling, but is it a masterpiece? Close. But it is a wonderful work of art about psychological depth, poetic beauty, and quiet sorrow. Kawabata's ability to examine a family drama under a microscope while also capturing Japan's shifting cultural landscape makes the novel both intimate and universal. Give it a go. Highly recommend.